Hi, I'm Ann Coulter. Welcome to my Substack, Unsafe. I have the CEO of the magnificent Babylon Bee, Seth Dillon, with me today. Welcome, Seth.
Great to be with you, Ann.
I have a lot to talk to you about. Within a gazillion, how often have you written a Babylon Bee headline and had it actually happened?
Well, we're tracking these in a spreadsheet. I think we got about 120, approximately 120 jokes that we've tracked that have either, I mean, they're not all exactly, the headline that came true, but they're close enough where we consider it a fulfilled prophecy. That's what we call them. Um, but I think that's, out of we've written, I don't know, 8,000 articles, something like that. So it's like a decent, it's a decent percentage.
What are
Um,
some of them? Do you remember?
Probably a higher percentage than CNN's truth record. So.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So some of them are pretty like on the mark. We wrote one about, making fun of Gavin Newsom because everybody was fleeing California. And so we did this headline about how he was named U-Haul's Salesperson of the Year. And then like a month later, there's a headline in Fox Business about how U-Haul literally ran out of trucks for people fleeing from California to go to Texas and other nearby states. And so it was like almost, I mean, even the brand, is actually the U-Haul company that was cited in the real headline, which was in our joke as well. So, examples like that are just like really crazy accurate. Other times it's a little bit more of a stretch. Like we did one about how, a teacher insisted that what was it? 2 plus 2 doesn't have to equal 4 or something. We did some joke about how it makes you a bigot if you insist that. And then, of course, there was a real headline that came out where, some teacher was saying that it's bigoted and it's, white supremacy to suggest that 2 and 2 always has to equal 4. One of my favorite, honestly, my favorite all-time headline of ours that came true later is actually a Trump joke. We make so many jokes about the left, but we also make jokes about Republicans and people on the right. And we told a joke about how Trump had claimed to have done more for Christianity than Jesus himself.
That's my favorite.
Which
Right
was,
there.
it's a
It
great Trump
sounded
joke.
real.
It sounded real. That's why it was such a great Trump joke because you could hear him saying that, and so many people thought it was true. They believed that it was true because that's something that he might say. And then 2 years later, by the way, that got fact checked and rated false because it went viral.
Yes.
And then 2 years later, he goes on a radio show and says he's done more for Christianity and religion in general than any other person in history. And so he was like, he went like beyond the scope of the joke. So that one actually got like ultra fulfilled. It was even greater than the joke itself. So we have so many countless examples of that stuff. It's a lot of fun, but it's also kind of disconcerting that reality catches up to satire so quickly.
I really like your jokes being fact checked by Snopes. But you did finally beat them down, I guess, by bringing lawsuits. Can you describe how social media has treated your jokes?
Oh, yeah. Well, it was fact checking originally, is it was how they tried to nail us. We got caught up in that whole effort to crack down on the spread of misinformation. Zuckerberg
Hate
and what's that?
and hate and
Hate,
inciting
yes.
violence. I liked that. Inciting. There was a really good one that accused you of inciting violence.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was the one about comparing Amy Coney Barrett to a duck to determine whether or not she was a witch, like an old Monty Python joke. Um, Incitement to violence, and then we appealed that, and a human reviewed it and upheld the ruling that it was incitement to violence. That one was pretty stupid, but the trouble that we had with the social platform, social media stuff, it really began back in 2018 when they tried to crack down on the spread of misinformation specifically, and it was because they were concerned about basically conservatives going viral like crazy on these social platforms and getting such broad reach. We were getting more reach than the legacy media, the mainstream media, and so they were very concerned about the fact that Trump was able to get elected in this environment because of the spread of misinformation. Zuckerberg took a lot of heat for that. He was very, willing to work with Congress to make sure, that they were doing what they could to crack down on the spread of misinformation. So they started working with third-party fact checkers. That's where Snopes comes into the picture, and they started fact checking articles to determine whether they were true, and then they would penalize the accounts that were spreading the misinformation. and we had a headline about how CNN purchased an industrial-sized washing machine to spin the news in before publishing it, which is a really kind of a, it's a silly, dumb joke that's not like laugh out loud funny. But what was funny was that it actually got fact-checked by Snopes and rated false. And Facebook actually threatened to take us off the platform, and they would demonetize us and deplatform us if we continued to spread fake news. And we're like, wait a minute, this is satire. This is an obvious joke. It's not misleading anyone. Now, the Trump joke, I can see, like, okay, a lot of people believe that was true. This spinning the news in a washing machine is pretty ridiculous. But that's where it started. It was with the fact checking on the jokes, and we had to eventually. You mentioned, we had to win. We won that fight because we pushed back on it. We had to threaten to sue Snopes at one point because in their fact checks, they would fact check the Onion, and they would be like, this joke came from the Onion, and they're satire. It's funny. You should laugh. Why are you, wondering whether or not it's true? But then they would fact check our jokes, and they would say things like, they've managed to fool people with these tricks before. They're operating under the guise of satire to spread misinformation. And we're like, okay, you're going beyond just giving us a rating now. You're actually smearing us and suggesting that we have these bad motives. And so we threatened them. We sent them a demand letter telling them they needed to stop doing that and retract it. They did. And they actually changed their rating systems so that they stopped rating our jokes false and started rating them satire, which I guess is a step in the right direction. But that's where it all got its start.
Do you know who the humans were who decided that the industrial size washing machine or dryer to spin the news was factual, intended to be factual and not a joke? Do you know who these people are? I'd love to see pictures of them. I can't imagine being such a human being.
I would too. The only one that I have a name and a face for that had anything to do with the enforcement against us is it Yoel Roth? Is that how you say it? Or Yoel? How do you say his name? The Twitter safety guy.
Oh, right.
He is the only one who I've seen where I can actually put a face and a name to, this nameless, faceless, these entities that make these decisions. No, there's no transparency on that. You don't know who it is. They just make their determinations, and they send you these templated, emails warning you or threatening you or notifying you of your suspension. So I wish we could see them. I'd like to know what they look like too.
Yes, I'd like to have a conversation with them. It's unbelievable to me. Well, at least you got past the 2018 massive crackdown on conservatives. As I think I've told you, I haven't gotten one new Twitter follower since that 2018 crackdown.
That is crazy. Still.
Yep.
Even after the change in ownership. That is wild.
I interviewed RFK on Substack, and he said the same thing was happening to him. I was stopped at about 2 million. He was stopped at 3 million. And he said he kept talking to Twitter and saying, this can't be true that I haven't gotten another Twitter follower. And they said, no, we've checked the filters. You're not in the filters. And he just kept sending them back, and they went back and they said, oh no, there was one specifically for you, holding you at 3 million. And I suspect that's what it is for me, but maybe you could talk to your pal Elon.
There may still be something on your account. I do know that when they were first, the Twitter Files thing happened, and they were inviting some people there to come look under the hood, and it was revealed what was happening with some of these accounts. At the time, I was working with Haya running Libs of TikTok, and a lot was revealed about the flags that had been put on that account. These warnings and these restrictions. And that had to be peeled back. There were layers that had to be peeled back, and there were layers upon layers of this stuff that was in place. Some of it specific actions taken for specific accounts, and there was no real blanket way that they had that I knew of at the time anyway for them to roll all of that back. And just there were a lot of one-off and continued to be a lot of one-off decisions that were made. Even the thing, I think it was what Elon started doing shortly after he took over was he was calling it Freedom Fridays or something like that, where he would unban people at the end of the week. And it was well, why not just unban all of the people that were banned, for these ridiculous rules, and let's get a clean start.
Right.
I don't know what the impediment was to doing that on a broader scale, what kind of concerns they had behind the scenes on why they didn't do that on a broader scale, but it did seem like it continued to be the case and has continued to be the case that there are these one-off situations on the back end where accounts still seem to be restricted, and unless and until it's brought to the right people's attention and it's dealt with on a one-off basis, they remain in place. That seems to be my impression.
You can watch complete episodes of Unsafe with Ann Coulter by subscribing to anncoulter.substack.com. That's anncoulter.substack.com. You can also listen to complete episodes for free at Ricochet.com. Choose Unsafe from the pull-down menu at the top of the page. That's Ricochet.com, your home for civil center right conversation on the web.